Now, earlier this year, Mercedes-Benz introduced a brand new model called the CLE, and that was the coupe back in January. But now, the summer's here, the CLE Cabriolet, also known as the convertible in the Mercedes-Benz range, is finally here. Yes, this is the new CLE Cabriolet, replacing the C-Class Cabriolet and the E-Class Cabriolet. And as you can see, it's come quite a long way. So yes, it was very important when Mercedes brought this model out, because years ago they said that they were consolidating a lot of their models into kind of a more simplified range. And rightly so, because they, well, a few years ago had about 40 plus models, different shapes of car, which if you're new to Mercedes and coming in and looking at them all, it can be quite confusing. So what they've done is basically remove the C-Class Coupe, C-Class Convertible, E-Class Coupe and E-Class Convertible, and simplified them into the CLE range. So here is the new convertible. And as you can see, a lot of design elements are very, very similar to the CLE Coupe. Now, of course, if you look really, really closely, Mercedes-Benz kind of unique design that they've been bringing out over the past couple of years. All these unique Mercedes logos just on the front to remind you what you're driving as always. Big Mercedes logo in the middle there. And of course, if you look even closely here, there's even the Mercedes logos all into the actual bumper itself, right just next to the parking sensors too. And of course, cutouts to keep it as aerodynamic as possible. Now, if you look here as well, this also has Mercedes-Benz's new light technology called Digital Light. Now, they were very, very kind enough to actually lend me a car that I could check this tech out, and I did take it into the dead of night. Let's just say these lights are quite impressive. I think it was about 1.3 million pixels per headlight. So that's like adjusting the light at night time to make it so you can just see in the dead of night. It's some pretty cool tech. Even on the top here as well, Mercedes-Benz have these power domes just to kind of give it a bit more of a flair, because they could have just kept with a kind of flat bonnet, but kind of giving these power domes where it's slightly raised on the bonnet just increases that kind of design ever so slightly. Now, when it comes to dimensions compared to the CLE Coupe, the length is exactly the same as the Coupe, but the width and the height are slightly different. So length 4850mm, width 2042mm, and height 1423. Now, when it comes to price for the CLE Cabriolet, it starts at around about £53,030. Of course, this is correct at the time of recording. Now, Mercedes-Benz, of course, do have these different packages and things. In the UK, it's called Premium and Premium Plus packages. And of course, they do have their own choice of different colour paints as well. So just keep an eye out. There may be some extra things on this car. I imagine this one is probably not a standard one, just so I can tell from the wheels and stuff. But yeah, just keep an eye out. I don't tend to run through those packages in that much detail, just because it can vary around the world. But anyway, on with the tour. Let's check out the rear of the car and the boot. Now, of course, this being a convertible, it's going to have slightly less space than like your traditional hatchback or saloon or estate and that sort of thing, which is of course to be expected. However, opening up the boot here, we can actually see this is where the roof actually goes. Of course, it all being fabric, which I'll show you how to fold it all up in a second. But it all goes in there. Now, if you're going to keep the car as it is here and you want maximum boot space, press this button and that will go up out of the way, giving you a maximum of 385 litres, which of course is pretty good. There isn't any underfloor storage space. However, you can actually fold the seats down. It's just kind of the central part of the seat where it folds down just like this here. But we need to show you how to do the roof. So let's put that back and show you how that bit works. All right, most importantly, this is a convertible. So how do you do the roof? Well, you can do it on the screen, which I'll show you how to do in a second, but you can also do it on the key. So if you hold the unlock button when you're standing near the car, you can convert the roof back. And it's almost magical how this stuff works. That folds up, this then folds up here, and the whole thing just folds back in just like that. Like clockwork. All right guys, so rear seats. Now, of course, this being a convertible, there is going to be slightly less legroom. However, this does fit in between the C-Class and E-Class that Mercedes-Benz have kind of removed and just left the CLE convertible Cabriolet. So what's the legroom like? Well, I have set that seat up for my driving position. However, Mercedes have some clever tech where, well, let me show you. Basically, if you let this seat hit your legs, it'll detect some pressure and it'll stop it and go forward again. So it's difficult to measure the actual legroom. So let me reset that And I'll keep my legs out the way so you can see what my actual driving position was like. Yeah, that is quite cozy. But there again, I don't think you'll be carrying many adults. I mean, I could move that further forward. This is, of course, for my driving position being 6'2", so it is quite cozy. But what I did want to test was the headroom. So let me just put that seat back so I've actually got some leg room so I can perform this test. There we go. I love this feature. Not many people know about this. So you literally let it touch your legs, bit of pressure, and it'll stop and then move forward slightly. Right, let's test the headroom. So I'm going to convert the roof back using the key, and we'll see exactly how much headroom there is. Surprisingly, there is actually more headroom than I thought. My hair is touching, and I should add I do have a slightly shorter body and longer legs. My hair is touching slightly at the top, so I can feel it touching there, but having said that, I mean, again, it's doable just for like a quick journey or something. If I owned this car, I'd probably use this as more like storage area or something like that. Cool. Well, let's have a look at the front of the car. Now guys, of course, up front, Mercedes-Benz design is doing its best as always, where you have this awesome digital instrument cluster in here and this kind of central display that's kind of like curving into the dashboard here. Now, one unique thing, and I'll just quickly show this before I shut the roof, this thing here. Now this was found, and I remember showcasing this before on, I think it was the Mercedes-Benz SL last year. This enables you to tilt the screen. Now you might be thinking, why would you need to do that? Well, it's quite important actually, because this is a convertible and there's a big slab of screen here. Given the right kind of direction, I mean, it won't really happen today because it's quite cloudy, but given the right direction, if the sun is kind of probably up behind you over there, it will reflect on there into your eyes and will be actually quite kind of unpleasant. So it's almost just like a mirror reflecting the sun, which wouldn't be great. So what this can do is actually tilt the screen forwards and backwards so you can still see it, but you don't have that kind of glare. So yeah. How cool is that? Bit different to the SL, that one. Literally silent function going forwards and backwards like that. Pretty neat, and it's proper solid too. It doesn't feel like it will actually move, so quality on that's pretty good. But yes, roof. Now, compared to the SL, which has a very kind of similar design on the inside, the roof controls were actually over here, but I believe, I've been told, they're down here, which I'm presuming is this one. You hold that. Now I much prefer this. In the SL it was on the touchscreen, and I remember I was just like, oh yeah, I'm going to have to mention that because it's on the touchscreen to do the roof. But no, this is a button. It's a huge improvement on that front. And just like that, it'll all close back up. Do you know what? I changed my mind. Let's open it back up. It's a lovely day. Well, sort of anyway. Can top up my tan a little bit more. Or non-existent tan, should I say. So let's continue. Of course, all these buttons down here do the roof. So you've got the open and the close button just down there. And then up here, this one should be a wind deflector. Ah yes, wind deflector coming up there. So what's quite handy is when you have all the windows closed, but the roof back, this will channel all the air further above your head so you don't mess your hair up. I mean, I probably wouldn't have that problem because I have shorter hair anyway, but very, very useful. And that's just a pull on those switches there to do that. Very neat. Then in here we have 2 cup holders in there, wireless charging there, USB-C port there, and USB-C ports in there as well. So pretty standard. Then of course we've got this touch bar along here. Now this allows you to change your drive mode, which I'm sure we'll try out in a minute on the test drive. Then we've got parking camera, so that can be a reversing camera or park assist or 360 camera if you happen to have that one. Car settings, hazards. This one's quite cool. This one is a kind of fingerprint recognition, so you can have up to 6 or 7 different users on MBUX, and you each can have your own profile. So if you have different driving positions and different settings, you can set them all up on there. Pretty cool. And of course then the on and off, tilt the screen and volume, so pretty easy. Now moving on to the multimedia system, of course there's a back button, home button, previous and next track buttons very conveniently located just there. Now of course the climate control is also along the bottom as well, so you can simply press this. Of course it is touch as well, so obviously something to factor in. Handily, this all does stay in the same place, so even if you turn the screen off, that climate control, back, home, previous, next track all stays in the same place, so pretty good on that front. Now when it comes to the other various elements of the multimedia system, there's loads of other things in here. For example, radio, just make sure that's turned down. And of course you literally just swipe across these like that and the one that's selected will be playing. Very easy to add favourites as well. Pressing home, you'll then have things like media, so you can go on here and access music on here. And I've got separate videos on all these different features on my channel, so of course be sure to check them out. Now, of course, if you're not a fan of using this multimedia system, of course, you can use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto as well, both of which are wireless, which is great to hear. So just before we take this out for a test drive, one last thing is the instrument cluster and the steering wheel. So we'll go through that first, then get out for a drive. So steering wheel is of course all touch like a lot of Mercedes-Benz. Now I do have this exact steering wheel apart from one extra button there. It's got the kind of like radar cruise control. I wish I had that. So yeah, I wish I did select that on my car. But anyway, I do have this steering wheel, and this steering wheel I have mixed feelings about. I do love the design and that sort of thing, but I'm not a huge fan of touch buttons on the steering wheel. You do get used to it over time. You can literally swipe these up and down here and it'll control various different things on the screen. So yeah, easy to use. In a nutshell, the left hand side controls the left screen and the right hand side controls the right hand side of the screen here. So there's various different things on here that you can do. So you can make your driving assistance package full screen, or you can even put sat nav over here as well. There's an abundance of things you can do on there and customize, although most of the time I do keep it on that one. Anyway, I think now is the time to take this car, well, not specifically this car, but the CLE Cabriolet, there's another one over here, out for a test drive and see what it's like out on the open road. Okay guys, right, so test drive is ready, so all set up, engine on. That is a very quiet start. Do you hear that? Listen, I'm going to turn it off again and then put it back on. That is very quiet. That's probably due to their mild hybrid tech. So anyway, foot on brake, into drive, and away we go. I'm currently on some gravel right now, so we'll just get out on the main road, then we'll see what this is like. Well, first impressions, buttery smooth on the road. Of course, slap bang in the middle of the C-Class and E-Class, its replacement, it's going to be like really, really smooth. And of course, as you can see, I've got the roof back at the moment to get that open air feeling. In fact, we can try out that cover. So when this cover is up here, I mentioned earlier, it channels all the air. You can feel the air literally here, but it's further up. It adds like an extra inch or so of the airflow above up here, so it doesn't mess your hair up. But thankfully, I don't need that, so I'll close that back up. Let's try out the sport mode. Oh, that feels good. It's got a good sound as well. So you might be wondering, what are the engines available on the CLE Cabriolet? For the CLE 200, it is a 2 litre, 204 horsepower. The next one being a CLE 220D, 197 horsepower. Then you get onto the faster ones, which is a CLE 300. This is where 4MATIC is introduced, which is the four-wheel drive system. 2 litre, 258 horsepower. And then CLE 450, also 4MATIC, but this time it's a 3 litre, 381 horsepower. So a lot faster. A lot of them do have mild hybrid tech now, so that's basically where the engine can turn off and save fuel as you're slowing down, rather than just kind of when you've come to a stop. But what is also quite clever as well is that mild hybrid tech can also make the car go faster, so it can give you a little bit of a boost. Now, the key word there is hybrid. It's not a plug-in hybrid, one where you have to plug it in and do something. You literally just drive this car like you would normally, and it does things in the background. Kind of the easiest form of a hybrid there is. In fact, one thing I do want to test is actually how quiet it is when the roof is closed, when you're on the move. So if I close this back up, It's very quiet, actually. That's very quiet. That's E-Class levels of quiet. That's, yeah. In fact, even just coming to a complete stop here, you can barely hear the traffic outside. There must be a lot of good sound insulation up here, even though it's obviously fabric, but yeah. Quite nice. Oh look, they've even got lights up here as well, built into the actual roof. That's clever. That engine start is so quiet as well. Aha, national speed limit. Sport mode. See if it's nice and clear behind me. Okay, away we go. Well, that's got a sporty sound. I like that. Do you know, that just reminded me, it's actually one thing I just completely glossed over earlier, is the fact you can do the roof while driving, which is pretty cool. So, this was up to like 30 something miles an hour, so what are we doing? 30 at the moment. I think it was 34. Yeah, 34 miles an hour. Just does it. Pretty cool. Well guys, I think that's a good place to end, so thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed what you saw, and lastly I'd like to give out a huge shout out to Mercedes-Benz for organising this test drive event, as I wouldn't have been able to do it without them, so massive shout out to them. But guys, thank you so much. Until next time, see you then.